So in the first two sessions, I think everyone would have become expert in growing the businesses, so bringing new customers on board. So now assume that we have good potential customer base with us, and we will be able to convert them. And so today, what we will do is we will talk about how do we actually deliver it? How do we actually run the organizations from an operations point of view so that we are able to do it in the minimum cost, correct? So, but before we move forward or before I even start talking about it, maybe let me ask a question. I know this is not the part of the workbook. I think workbook questions will come little later, and I see a few more people are joining in. My question is, if you all would want to say talk about, say, what are your expectations from this session, right? What's the key takeaway you would want take away from this session? And I'll be happy to wait for a minute or so. And anyone would want to unmute or put it in the text or whatever way you feel comfortable.
Hi, this is Kumaresh.
Hi, Kumesh.
I'm in the manufacturing sector of specialty chemicals,
Okay.
like the likes of BASF, Stonard, Flowcrete, Dr. Sippy, kind of product line I have. What I am looking at is your value stream mapping. The uh, the current and the existing and the future one. Which that's one, and second is what kind of a maximum of automation in the sense not on the machinery side, and how the operations can work without the founder's interference, and what to what extent we can go, what kind of risks we can take to allow that. These two are my, I'm expecting these to be covered. Thank you
Great. So thanks for bringing
for
this up.
setting up
So
the expectations.
great. Sure. Thanks. Anyone else?
Yeah. Hi, Amit. This is Dinesh from HMS Medical Systems, Chennai. So we manufacture physiotherapy medical devices, and I thought, no. So I have heard about Toyota's manufacturing process, how they maintain the quality in the manufacturing, even with the scale that they produce the cars. So I thought, no, maybe some insights on how they maintain all those manufacturing quality. And I heard a lot about the Kaizen manufacturing technique, what they follow. So maybe I thought we have some insights about that, how to maintain the quality when we scale up.
Absolutely. Sure. Thanks. Anyone else? And should I assume like most of you are manufacturers? I think since that's the understanding I had earlier, so I'll keep the session manufacturing focused. But are anyone like who are from the services sector in this group? Or should I assume 100% you are manufacturers? Okay, so I assume so 100% all of you are manufacturers, so which helps so that I'll keep it from the manufacturing point of view also. But in case, I mean, any question comes up which relates to the services, I mean, you can always bring it up in between. Okay, so let me start. And I think you have all gone through my profile. So maybe in the interest of all, I'll quickly, very briefly introduce myself. So I basically worked with corporates for about 25 years, primarily in three companies in an RPG group. I was there in their India leadership team of General Electric. I was there a long time with IBM. And all through those 25 years, I've worked on a technology space and technology use of a technology in the manufacturing industry. So that's what I had been doing with the corporates, have been to a lot of global plants in India, Europe, and US, and then during that time, I had also worked as a Lean Six Sigma black belt, so done with a process background. So that's where my expertise is, and my association with the SMEs or MSMEs, in fact, started in 2019. It was a time when I took over a responsibility of a Digital India initiative of accelerating digitization in the manufacturing sector of the country, and that was an interesting initiative that Indian government launched in 2019. So that was a 5 years program which I led. And as part of that, I worked for a lot of SMEs across the country. In fact, been to many plants in South while I'm based in Gujarat, but extensively traveled all across the countries to the MSMEs plant, have engaged with the almost between 3,000 to 4,000 MSMEs in those 5 years, and done the brief level of and basic assessments of almost 500 MSME units in the different sectors. And after the program got over, that's where I continued my interest of working and helping MSMEs on the technology adoption. And now I'm spending my most of the time in creating awareness about how to go about in the technology adoption, digitalization, and process improvement, process excellence. So that's what kind of an I'm um, I'm I'm doing my best to help the MSMEs. So that's about me. And this topic is actually very important. One is this is important for all of you because you all would want to grow your organizations. You all would want to produce in a minimum of a cost, right? So you want to improve your margins, you want to streamline your processes, you want to make your life easier, correct? So I've seen how difficult the life of manufacturers is because, and especially the MSMEs, the day-to-day issues that keeps on coming every day, and the time of owners, MSME owners basically, or promoters, always goes in handling those day-to-day issues, correct? So one issue finishes, second comes up, after 1 week same issue comes up, and then we are kind of insolving. So uh, the major difference that I have seen between the MSMEs and the large corporates is basically the amount of firefighting that the manufacturing owner has to do in our country, correct? So large companies has a lot of support system with them, correct? So they have external vendors, they have a huge team size, they have a lot of skills which are internally available, they have money to spend to hire new people. But for MSMEs, it becomes difficult because you are running on a tight budget. You cannot spend so much on bringing the right kind of and people who will help your organization maneuver through this operational challenges. There are a lot of double hatting happening, correct? In fact, you as a owner also you will be wearing multiple hats during the day, correct? So you are the CEO, you are the operations head. Sometime you will become the procurement head. You are growing the business, so you do everything, correct? So which is why the time to spend time to grow the business, correct? Think from a strategic point of view. It really becomes difficult for the manufacturing owners, and that's why we have a huge challenge in hand, right? And let's do one thing. Maybe we can even start with the workbook now before, and after that, I will bring up the presentation. So since I already talked about the MSMEs have a lot more operational challenges than a large company has, correct? So let's start jotting down few challenges that you are having, right? So maybe uh, take about 3 minutes. I think that should be the right time. And then quickly summarize the operational challenges that you are having in your organization, right? So these would be something which comes to top of your mind. I'm giving you 3 minutes only because you don't have to really think what are my challenges. These should be something which is making you think multiple times during the day. I mean, keeping you awake, keeping you always stressed, correct? So maybe try to highlight 4 or 5 areas which you feel are your biggest challenges. So let's take maybe 2 to 3 minutes. While you are doing it, I'll bring up the presentation. Okay, 30 seconds more. Okay, great. So I assume that, I mean, I think you're done. If any one of you would want to just briefly share, I'll be happy to kind of just listen. I just want some very basic level of understanding on what are your bigger problems which are keeping you awake.
First is manpower availability,
Okay,
then the supply chain disruptions,
okay,
cost escalations, and
okay,
the other one is the teams are not getting interlinked, and they don't understand the other team's function. The lateral thinking process or broad based thinking process is not available. All silo based thinking in every department.
absolutely. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. Yeah. Anything else you were talking?
Yeah. Hi, Amit. Dinesh here.
Yes.
So most of the things that Mr. Kumareshan said also fits into my organization, lack of manpower. So that really affects the production process. And then other thing is the supply chain management. So we got to get a lot of materials from outside of India. So that disruption has been occurring for the past 4 months now. So that's a major issue we're facing, and also production planning. So that's the one thing that we really struggle at, because when we get a lot of orders, and then we struggle to know prioritize the order and then plan the production accordingly.
Sure. Others?
Sir, hi, I'm Dinesh from Merit Creators Karur, Tamil Nadu. Sir, I
Mhm.
like to add up a couple of points to that. Importers government policies like US tariff that was bring by Trump's nowadays. Even it was ongoing for 3 years. This affects our export projects, and the dollar price also falling, sir. Whenever the dollar price is it's compared to Indian rupees is falling, automatically the raw material prices has increased drastically, sir. These are 2 points I need
So
to add.
which ultimately relates to the supply chain disruption, because
Yes,
that's where your raw material pricing and the availability and
yes,
in
sir.
fact your product
Uh,
pricing also gets
yes,
impacted. So,
yes,
sure,
yes, sir.
sure. Anyone else would want to
Yeah,
anything beyond these points?
yeah. I'm myself Janice Kanja. We are into manufacturing of capital goods CNC machineries. So we
Okay.
have varied part of metal type of different parts used into our machines. So the inventory management is an issue for us as being a startup.
Okay. Sure. Anyone else? Okay. I think this is helpful. That this gives me a little bit of an understanding on kind of an troubles you all are facing. So that's where I wanted to start basically. These are few words in Hindi because what I was not sure is to keep it in pure English or mix of Hindi or English. And so what I'll do is I'll keep the all the discussion in English. In case any one of you want to have some conversation in Hindi, I'm very comfortable. So you can let me know. So what we wanted to talk about is basically operational, what are the operational problems that we have, and then how big are they, correct? So how critical are these for running the organization? So while some of you that have highlighted, I think that's very much true, and but we'll have to kind of take a step back and start seeing what exactly are the things which are governing or bringing up these kind of an issues, correct? And what are the burning issues that we have? And since a lot of you talk about, or at least some of you I heard talk about the exports also. So if we are doing both export and import, then number one challenge I think you will see is the global competitiveness. So um, we are seeing how much of competition we always have with the some of the South Asian countries, maybe China, Taiwan, and a few other countries, correct? So there are huge competition that we have. And global competitiveness is something which is impacting our business. Now, if we have to think through on why are we low on a global competitiveness, right? So why the some of the other countries like China, they are able to produce at a cost which is much below than us. The manpower cost, I think you highlighted about the manpower also. So manpower cost in China is higher than in India. So they they're spending more on the manpower, but still why they are able to produce in lesser cost than us. And I think the simple answer to that question is basically they have much more streamlined and refined processes. Second thing is that the amount of an automation or digitalization, correct? So I will try to clarify these two things also because I see a lot of manufacturers use these terms interchangeably, but these are very different, correct? So maybe I'll try to clarify these two terms. So the manufacturers in China, basically, they have high level of an automation and high level of a digitalization, plus their processes are a lot more streamlined, which is what basically leads to for them to produce at a much lesser cost, right? And what we have, the other challenge is basically the increasing gaps between the large and the SME companies. So have I'm not sure whether how many of you have tried to compare yourself at the cost level at which the large companies in your segment, they produce at what cost, and at what cost basically MSMEs are producing. Let me bring it up a survey that was done. I'm just summarizing it, but if you really want to see, you can Google it, and then you will find this research report. So by Cushman Wakefield, it's a global research organization. They did a survey across the world with some major manufacturing countries, and they tried to analyze the level of a productivity difference between the large organization and SMEs in their countries. Right? So, for example, say in China, what is the level of a productivity ratio between a large and the SME in China? Correct. Similarly, they did for all the major manufacturing countries. And in that research report, it came out that the productivity level of Indian SMEs, by the way, they are using SMEs there, not exactly MSMEs. So the productivity level of Indian SMEs is much lower than the other countries, the ratio, and it is basically roughly around 1/7, which means the large companies' productivity and SMEs' productivity differs by 1/7. Right? So, and in India, which means if a large company is producing 1,000 products and they are using 100 manpower, if same product has to be produced by MSMEs, it will take say 600 to 700 manpower. Right? So that's the level of a difference that we are seeing in a productivity level within India, correct? I'm not even saying that let's start comparing with the other countries. Even in our own country, MSMEs employ a lot more manpower than the large manufacturing companies. And again, reason is remains the same. The amount of a technology adoption, amount of an automation that the MSMEs have done and versus the large companies, it is at a very different level. And the other reason that at least that clearly has highlighted in that report is basically the skill level. So the skill level that large companies employs, they are much higher. Then the next thing is the lack of operational visibility, right? So, um, and it has come out clearly even within this cohort also, correct? So when I was asking about the challenges, you all were talking about supply chain disruptions. You were talking about manpower issues related to policies, related to government or the external factors that are there, correct? But none of you talked about the how much of losses, or basically the what is the level of a capacity utilization that you have within your own manufacturing units, and is that the challenge or is this not the challenge? Do you feel you have the right level of a capacity utilization, correct? So those things basically are not coming out, and which clearly highlights that there is a lack of operational visibility within the manufacturing units in our MSME sector. So what does this means is that while we know that how much of a production is happening on a daily basis, how much of a raw material is getting consumed, how much of a cost that we are incurring in the manpower, we all know that which order is getting delayed, which order is getting on the time, correct? So at least these things manufacturers has it. But when we talk about what is my capacity utilization, and by the way, not what is my capacity, just not just what is my capacity utilization, it is the what is my real capacity utilization, because sometimes it happens that We just do the calculation. We had set up the plant based on 100 metric ton. We are producing 80 metric ton in the time. So we are 80% capacity utilization, right? So that's not the real capacity utilization. There are a lot of other factors that basically comes, and again, which I will cover later in the session on how do you really assess the capacity utilization of a plant. Then factories have high-end machines, so that's where even our Indian MSMEs are pretty good at. So as I told, I've traveled across the country in the different MSME units across sectors. We don't have an issue with the kind of a machineries we are using. Even if a lot of traditional manufacturing units they are using old machines, but still the machines are there, and even many of the manufacturers basically have high-end machines. So we don't compromise on anything when we know that, I mean, what kind of a machine we need. So that's a good thing. Uh, there is no delay of decision also which happens about buying the machines. But in spite of this, we still have over dependence on the workers, right? So if any day few workers also kind of and doesn't come, it becomes an issue. And as few of you also talked about, manpower availability is the biggest thing, right? And then the last thing basically here is the focus on sustaining, right? So this I highlighted earlier also. So there's a lot of focus on the sustaining versus growing. So um, there may be several sessions basically it can happen for you on how do you grow the business, build a pipeline, grow the business, correct? But then it doesn't happen because most of your time goes in the operational issues, correct? So which will not leave you to do the things which are actually needed, correct? So that's the one level of a summary. Now this my next slide. Basically, I have summarized here, and this is basically a in one of the session like this that I'm doing today. In fact, that there I had an opportunity to get inputs from the people to understand their current challenges they are facing, and so this and these are the numbers that they have, and this was basically a group of about 25 to 30 people who did this survey for that session. And all of these things are pretty much similar to what you have told, correct? So, which means whichever session I go, I kind of and I broadly hear the same thing. So, supply chain disruption, basically, even from a customer demand point of view, also there is a huge variable demand, the problem that we have, correct? Raw material availability in that basically, so 26% of the people basically highlighted there's a raw material availability, machine downtime, skilled workforce availability, correct? So skilled workforce availability is almost half of the people. In fact, what I felt is this is still the lower number, because generally in all my other sessions, if I ask 10 people, 8 people will always tell me that my number one priority is or a challenge is the skilled workforce availability. Then what we have is a workforce productivity, machine downtime, correct? So these are the basic problem that keeps coming up on a day-to-day basis, which doesn't give time for the people to really think over on how do we grow the business. And now the point is basically these remains the same, but the good thing is we have a solution for this. So technology or digitalization or whatever we want to say, it has a solution for it, right? So, and I will talk few of the things a little later, but let's jump on and move to the next slide. And here, what I'm showing you is basically the three different kind of a manufacturing owners. So basically, you can say that this is a persona of a manufacturer, and uh, based on what I have observed from different people, I've categorized into three personas. The first one, which is on your left, basically the first one, this is a happy man, right? So the manufacturer who's happy, right? sound doesn't sound right, correct? Manufacturer being happy. I mean, in spite of all the daily firefighting and all the issues, correct? But still, we have a lot of manufacturers who are happy. And happy in the sense doesn't mean that they don't have a problem. Happy in the sense is they feel the problems will continue to stay. They are bound to be there. So it is all good. Uh, Manufacturing means problems, and then we will keep solving it. But that's how manufacturing happens, correct? So that's the first category of people who are, in spite of all the hustle and bustle, the issues that they are facing, they are happy. That's the first category, or I'll say that reflects the mindset of first kind of a manufacturer. Second in between is basically a person who's very excited. Excited in the sense the person is seeing a lot of opportunities from a future point of view. This person is really geared up. There's something in the mind that right now I'm maybe say I'm a 100 crore company and I'm really looking forward to maybe 20-30% year on year growth. Correct. So 3-4-5% is something that I'm not happy with. For me, until I reach a level of a 30%, I'll continue to work upon it. And I'm really seeing that there is a huge possibility of growing say 20% year on year. So that's the second category. First category, happy, and this person is happy with say 3-4-5% growth, correct? So if I'm 100 crore, maybe next year I'll become 104 crore, and that's I'm happy about it, correct? So I hope I'm able to differentiate between the first and second. Now the third category of a person is basically this is a person or a manufacturing owner who has tons of problems in hand. So it's kind of an frustrated, so this person keeps on going through the challenges. All day goes in firefighting, problem solving. In fact, I mean, even after the worker or after the day when the owner goes home, the factory is still on the mind, correct? Still phone calls, still everything keeps on going. So this person has tons of an issues and person is frustrated, right? So that reflects the frustrated mindset. So first one is happy, second is excited, third one is the frustrated. So that's where now let me kind of open it up now to I'm asking you to reflect yourself in a section two, and maybe just fill it up on which mindset you feel you have within your organization, whether your organization sees to be like things are okay, problems will continue to stay, but things are not that challenging. Second is basically there are a lot of opportunities you're seeing in the immediate future, so you are excited about it and you're thinking about it now. How do I really prepare my operations for that high level of a growth? Third one is basically right now I'm looking to solve my immediately, I'm looking to solve my operational challenges. I can't live with those operational challenges. I have to solve it. Right? Is this distinction clear? If anyone has a question, you can ask, but then if not, then maybe take, I think this should not take more time, maybe just maximum 2 minutes you can take, and maybe you can note down. And I will not ask you to bring it up here on what mindset you are in, correct? You just note down and keep it with you. And whatever you say that whichever state your organization is, please also mention it. What are the reasons of it? Again, it will basically help you to just kind of review in future. Okay, so I assume that you all have done it so that you're clear about um, where, at what stage basically you are. So now let's start getting into some details. And what I have for you is basically the operational maturity limit. So there are many ways you can do the assessment. There are different frameworks also which are available to assess the organization from an operational maturity. There are the frameworks also kind of can measure you from the overall digitalization that impacts the operational maturity. And there is a one framework I will talk about it. But let's first define what are these operational maturity levels are there, right? So first one I'll say that which is at a very basic level where the organization gets started is the ad hoc. So ad hoc doesn't mean that the organization is not achieving the outcomes or achieving or not doing good business, not doesn't have good revenue, correct? There are many organizations also have seen where um, processes basically just changes and you need to do something and then there are some immediate changes are needed and then some changes it will happen, right? So there are there are many ad hoc things that keeps happening, correct? And while some last minute adjustment sometimes is okay, but I've seen many organizations where it happens, keeps happening regularly, correct? So, which clearly highlights the level of a process level of a maturity is basically not there in the organization, right? Again, that doesn't mean that the organization doesn't have revenues, good revenues, or is not making a quality product, but still, the processes are not fully streamlined. Second thing is basically where we are saying the processes are repeatable. So if a process is there and if you do one thing and the same thing gets done again and again and again, every time it will happen in a similar way. If there are SOPs, all SOPs are very well defined, very well kind of and governed, managed properly, correct? So the processes are well defined and well managed, correct? So which is, and if the processes are defined but not well managed, then also correct, we will say it is still ad hoc because a process until it is a well managed, you can't create a repeatable results because just defining the process is not enough, correct? The processes has to be defined, process has to be the right level of a process, and then it they should be properly governed also. So that's basically the repeatability. Now in the next level, when we start growing into the ladder, which is where then the data driven levels start coming in. Before that, it is more of a people driven. In fact, that's the situation. Most of us in our MSME units are there that the processes are more of a people driven and it is not enough of a data basically which regularly gets used in driving the processes. Third level becomes basically when we are saying it starts becoming a connected. Now, what does connected means? Connected doesn't mean that say we implement an IoT solution and and the machine basically starts transmitting the data and then we have the machine data available with us, so machine is connected. That doesn't mean that organization is connected. Connected also means is basically the data seamlessly flows between the different departments, right? So it is not just on the paper. Like if there is a customer inquiry is there, customer interaction is there, order has come in, the order simply gets into the system. From there, it goes to the planning person. From planning, it goes to the shop floor person. From a shop floor, then it's the manufacturing which is happening. Correct. So there is a connectivity basically is established inside the organization. The level above connectivity, basically, it becomes the integrated, where across all systems that are being used inside the organization, they all are integrated, correct? So, the example of it I can say is in many organization. In fact, I mean this integration is a challenge even in some of the large organization also. So, companies have ERP, but other than the ERP, there are many other solutions that the large companies they buys it. There's something they have bought specifically for the manufacturing, something is there for the raw material management, inventory management. There are different solutions are there. Some solution will be there for logistics management. So there are different solutions which will be there, but then these solutions will not talk to each other seamlessly. Correct? So there will be some level of a manual intervention which will happen where the data basically from one system gets reviewed and then fed into the other system. So there is a seamless integration which is basically not there. So that's where therefore the integration there is a separate level, and after that the next level basically is somewhere where say that it's an optimization, where regularly data analysis at a detailed level is done. Based on the data analysis, basically you find out what are the challenges, what are the issues are basically are there in the manufacturing unit, and accordingly the processes are optimized, these the results are optimized, the outcomes are basically optimized. Correct. So I hope, I mean, these this is basically help you bring a clarity on the different levels of an operational maturity. And now I want you to is basically start writing, say, in on your next section on what is the operational maturity level basically that you feel you have within your organization. Any question here before you start writing down? I mean, are these level clear to you? Are you clear with what it is needed to define it? Okay, so if you're clear, then maybe you can write it down, and also maybe while you are seeing that, say whether you are at repeatable, ad hoc, connected, whatever level you choose, maybe give some pointers also why you feel you are at that level. Okay, shall we move forward? Everyone good at it? Okay, let me now just bring in a clarity about, and I don't have a slide for it, but I just thought of maybe giving you some level of a clarity about the difference between the digitalization and the automation. Okay. Most of you, correct? So I'll not say most of you, but most of the manufacturers always think of automation is basically from the point of view. If anything is getting done manually, if it doesn't happen manually, it becomes automation. Correct. So that's precisely okay, and that's a right level of an understanding. But then the the manual work also is also basically of the two kinds. One is the physical work that happens in an organization, and the second is basically the mental work which is happens. So when we say automation or bringing machines, what it happens is basically is the where the work of a manpower start happening through the use of a machine, right? So that's where it primarily is the automation. So the physical work of the manpower basically gets done through the machine is primarily gets is basically done through the automation. When we are really talking about the digitalization, that's where we start even reducing the work of a mental work basically that a person does, correct? So which means a lot of decision making, lot of thinking process that a person does in the organization, correct? So those things starts happening in a better way and starts happening in a lesser time. So that's where the digitalization basically comes up. The automation can only increase the capacity to certain level. Basically, if you are kind of an automating the physical work uh, of a manpower using the machines, the capacity increase will only happen to a certain level. Then there is a next level of a capacity increase that can happen is basically through the use of a data, which means taking the better decisions within the organization. So by taking a better decisions, the capacity improves by another level, correct? So which is what happens in the digitalization. Then other difference is basically in automation, the machines are work as a standalone machines, which means there are workers who are operating the machine. They feed in the raw material, the machine produces the output, and then it gets packaged and then it gets delivered, correct? So but machines are not talking. In the digitalization, the machine, the basically overall manufacturing units is not standalone. It becomes basically a connected unit, or you can say so, which is where that third level starts happening. It becomes a connected means one machine can talk to other machine, one machine can talk to a human, correct? They can say that machine can communicate that this is the work that I did today. I stopped for 10 seconds in between. There was a breakdown in between, or the machine can give indications saying that there is some problem I'm having inside, and there is a chance that I might have a breakdown in next 3 to 4 days. So please take some remedy action, correct? So these are the things that machine can communicate, right? So which is where the machine connectivity basically comes in, and that again happens through the softwares with the use of some hardwares basically. So it is the digitalization. So it's essentially basically it becomes the complete connected factory where the information can flow from one place to other place without any kind of an intervention, correct? So I hope, I mean, that makes it very clear. If we are if we are automating manual physical work, it is automation. Otherwise, it is the digitalization. So I hope, I mean, that definition stays clear. Now, let's start talking about some of the operational things. So here, basically, you will see two pictures on left and right? So first picture, basically, you are seeing where the traffic flow is smooth, and the second right picture, basically, here you are saying there are there are basically cars are waiting and there is a signal. So what essentially it says is basically there is a bottleneck which has come up in between. Correct. And these bottlenecks only basically creates issues within the manufacturing systems. Correct. So one bottleneck can create an impact of how much of a production loss or how much of a delay basically varies, and it also depends on what kind of a bottleneck it is. But these are the things basically we are used to in a manufacturing unit. But only thing is we are not able to assess what is the level of an impact of each of the bottleneck. Correct. So how do we assess the bottlenecks, and which is where the value stream mapping comes up. Correct. So I know, I think one of you also talked about, I think it was Kumresh. Correct. So you talked about, you really wanted to understand the value stream map, and I think this is something which came from a lean, and this helps a lot in mapping the complete process flow of the production. So what I have for you in front of this screen is basically it's a very basic level of a value stream map, and what it shows is basically the supplier. Uh, from a supplier, it goes to the basically the production, your manufacturing unit. Inside manufacturing unit, there are different operations basically at happens, and from the from your factory basically it goes to the customer, and so that's a simple flow. And now it it kind of and it defines the detailing of it. Correct. So you start in a value stream map. What you do is the it is not just your process flow. So I think in all the MSME organization, you really have a process flow diagram is available, clearly well defined for all of you. But what you don't have is the how much of the cycle time or the actual time basically it is happening on a average or a regular basis in your organization. So these numbers are basically sometimes not clear if you don't have a value stream map. And if you don't have these numbers, then your production planning or your other activities or your material planning, inventory planning, all will happen based on a standard assumptions or say the protocols that you would have developed at some point of time. So the same thing keeps happening on a regular basis, but then it doesn't change, correct? So that's where it is always good to also have a data basically along with the process flow that explains how much of activities are basically are really the value added activities and how much of the activities are more of a non value added, which is more of a waste or a or an waiting that basically happens at a regular basis in an organization, correct? So one is basically from a supplier side, how much times basically supplier sends the material. Then what you have is the in the block you will see the cycle time, correct? So if there are say four operations: cutting, welding, assembling, and shipping. And again, this is a very simple, just for you to understand while you will develop it for your organization or for your, say, one product development process. It will take some time. It will not be as simple as it looks here. So maybe it will, but still, I think you should do it. From the this diagram, at least it will give you what are the ways, basically what all the kind of a data basically you should collect and you should fill it here. Okay. So now cycle time is basically the actual time it takes for the operation. So if it is say cutting, correct? Cutting takes only 45 seconds to do the cutting. So that's the assumption. Then what you have in the next process is basically the welding. So there the cycle time is the 60 seconds. So you for your manufacturing setup, what I mean, you can define the your current process which you have, and there start noting down the what is the cycle time, the actual operation times that happens. CO here is basically the changeover time, right? So when you actually do the cutting operations and say you do certain number of cutting operations you do, and after that say you have to do the changeover. That's the one thing. Second, what you can define is basically the uptime. How much of an uptime that machine has, how much of a time the machine was not working, correct? So these are the some of the numbers basically you can start documenting. Then what you have is basically in the triangle boxes here. So these are your inventory levels, right? So these will define, say, how many pieces basically were cut, and then it became a work in process inventory before moving to the next operation of the welding. Correct. So in this case, basically what we have is there are 150 pieces were cut, and they didn't go to the welding say for 2 days. Again, this is just a hypothetical number, so there can be any reasons for it. What I'm suggesting you is basically you make your own value stream map for your organization so that it gives you clarity on where the time is going, what is the time that you can really save and where you can save, and then where are my all the bottlenecks, right? So once you define for each of the operation, you will start seeing the things in a very clear way, where the operation is running fine or where the operations is having a challenge, correct? So if you see in this organization, the major time is lost between the cutting to welding. Between welding to assembly, it is only 1.5 days of a loss, correct? The loss between the cutting to welding is more. And then even from the assembly to shipping, it is 1 day. So at least you will start seeing it, how much of your inventory basically is lying down at each stage on a daily basis. What is the cycle time of it? And then you can understand the what is the actual time which is taking, and then compare it with the cycle time. So if your cycle time is 45 seconds and your uptime is say 95%, changeover of a 10 minutes is the changeover, you will know that 100 and to produce 150 cut for the 150 parts, basically if you have to do the cutting operations, you can calculate from this number how much time it will take. And when you do the actual measurements, if you find that your actual time is different than this time, then you can start investigating. There can be two things. One is either your numbers say that your cycle time is not right, which you have assumed it. Second, or the option can be your cycle time is right, but then your teams, basically your workers are not producing as per the cycle time. Okay, so one of these two reasons basically will be there. So that's where you can start thinking through on where are the problems, what kind of challenges basically are there, where inventory is getting locked down, why it is not moving, what I can do so that say there is a 2 days of a waiting between cutting and welding, what I can do to reduce these 2 days to 1.5 days, why we can't ship it just immediately after the assembly, correct? Why we have to wait for 1 day. You may also analyze what I can do so that my production time matches to the cycle time. It goes as close as possible to the cycle time. See, cycle time is basically is nothing but an ideal, correct? So you really that's the time it should always take as per that. But in actual, how much time it is taking, correct? And that's where you can do the comparison, start seeing where the improvement has to be there, which areas, what are the different bottlenecks, correct? So if you see, all of these are bottlenecks. One, two, three, all of these are bottlenecks. And then these are your, like in what I've shown in the previous picture was a red signal, correct? So in this case, these are your red signals, these are your bottlenecks. And that's where you can start analyzing which is the bottleneck I want to work on it first. And then step by step, keep working on the bottleneck and then bringing the improvement. And once you fix up bottleneck at one place, go to the second bottleneck, because bottleneck means, so while there will be multiple bottlenecks, you will always kind of and pick it up which is the most expensive bottleneck, where the maximum number of losses are happening. So which is where you will, as an operational excellence area, what you will keep looking at up is basically picking up the bottlenecks, going from one place to other place, and then fixing it. And that's where basically once you have this diagram clearly with you, you will also get clearly basically what is my value at a time and what is my non-value at a time and what is basically my total lead time. So at least this will tell you, say, if you get an order and you get an order where you have to produce 500 components, as per your current lead time, when it will get ready and what is the date it should be communicated to the customer. So this value stream map will basically help you to even decide the delivery dates also for your customers. Again, what I've seen is in majority of the organization, value stream map is not there, which is where then what company does is basically they have a fair idea about, say, how much time they are taking for the manufacture, right? And just by that an average time, they will kind of commit. And later on, it you basically either some issue has happened or some delay has happened because of that, and then the you are not able to predict then the new time, correct? So which is when this having this value stream map exercise basically will help your organization. One is to identify what are my different bottlenecks, uh, and from a lean terminology, I think you all, I'm not sure how many of you heard of a theory of constraints, correct? So uh, so Goldratt basically brought up this concept, and that's where basically the idea is to identify different bottlenecks within my processes and keep working on the bottlenecks, and that's where basically you keep improving the processes. So I hope, I mean, this helps. Now I definitely would want to have some discussion here. So while there is a question basically here, which you don't have to do it now, you will find that in your red color, because you actually cannot fill it right now because you don't have a data. What I would encourage to all of you is basically for your maybe one or two product line, establish your value stream map. Basically, ask one of your person to collect data of each and every stage, and don't collect data based on, say, what it has been filled in your logbooks, basically, other than manual logbooks, because we know that many times these logbooks are filled more from a process point of view rather than getting into the actual data. So I think it is always good that one person goes and collects the data himself, not just depend on the manual logbooks, and collect the data himself, and based on that fill the this value stream map, and then you can start looking in and finding out the issues, correct? So is this value stream map clear to all of you? Any questions here? सबको क्लियर है?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, Kumaresh. Hello.
He said yes.
Even though this is not related to me, because mine is a I don't have any of the cycle times and all those changeover times. Ours is a batch making process. Okay, it's a paint manufacturing, but we understand the theory of constraints and the way you explain. Thank you. Mine is clear.
Yeah, correct. So even though if it is a batch manufacturing, still what you can have is basically you can still have at an each operation level the timings that you can. So I mean, this will the same thing will work
Oh
for the
yes,
batch manufacturing also.
yeah,
It is only like this example is for an engineering industry, correct? So and here also it could be batches. For example, this company could be producing say 500 components, correct? And
so I
those
can use
500
it with a bit of
components
it.
in one batch. Sorry, you're saying something?
Yes, I can use it with a bit of small changes.
Correct, yes. So, but and then the examples or basically the data points basically which are given is only basically an indicative, correct? So what you have to do is basically what makes sense for your organization to assess the identify basically where are the bottlenecks. Now for that, whatever the data points that you feel that are needed, we can add to it, correct? The idea is basically you define certain parameters for your production process and start documenting at each operation step so that you know that what is the amount of a time it is taking or the amount of a time
Yes,
it is
yes,
getting
got it, got it.
wasted.
Yes.
Okay, sure. Okay, any other person? किसी और को अगर कुछ क्लियर नहीं है बिकॉज सी पूरे ऑपरेशनल एक्सेलेंस के अंदर सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक बेसिकली इज द वैल्यू स्ट्रीम मैप. अगर आपने ये ठीक से बना लिया, आई थिंक योर हाफ ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम विल गेट सॉल्व. And this is not a new concept. This is value stream map is basically it is going on since long time. It comes from the lean. But the only challenge is basically we don't prepare it in our organization because it takes some effort and some level of an understanding and some customization basically which is needed to create this, correct? So this is not that like you will use this as a standard template as it is. For every organization, some modification has to be done based on what process you have, what kind of a manufacturing unit you have. So those customization to this basically will need to be done. But overall concept is basically key for our process at each operation, we are able to assess how much of a production is happening, at what cycle time it is happening, how much of a waiting time is there, how much of a different kind of a waste is getting generated, how much is the idle time, how much is the downtime. So, for example, here you can even have a one more figure for the downtime. Other you can have is basically the idle time, correct? So you can even enter more parameters here, which basically will help you start assessing to understand where are more idle time is happening, correct? Which means your capacity utilization is getting low because of an idle time in that place. Okay. What about from others?
All good, Amit.
Okay, I'm just asking. So others like so are you is it clear to everyone? So I know Kumarish, you have said yes. I'm just asking, I mean, others if is this something very clear? Is this are you clear basically how will you use to identify the bottlenecks in your processes?
Yeah, it is clear.
Okay, so I hope I mean now you will be able to build this for your product lines, correct? So let's move further. Uh, So now we will start talking about the overall capacity utilization, right? So this is something which also many of the manufacturers don't kind of focus. What at least what I've seen in MSME organization is the moment they start seeing capacities getting close to what they feel they can produce, they start thinking about, let me buy in some three, four more machines. We are not able to fulfill the orders. Or maybe some units feel that maybe we need one more unit to be come up there. So they set up one more unit, correct? So basically, the doesn't mean that if there are more order comes, then we have to immediately start thinking about expanding the capacity by bringing in more machines or increasing the setup. There's always room for increasing the capacity within the same set of machines, within the same set of workers, within the same set of resources, and it is very much possible. And why I'm saying is basically our manufacturing units never work at 100% capacity. There are always rooms to basically improve because there are always losses which keeps happening in during the time of a manufacturing. So those losses basically reduces our capacity. If we can identify those losses and we can fix those losses, our capacity utilization basically will automatically increase, right? So the idea is basically focus on increasing the production using the same set of resources, same machines without spending anything, right? So and if we can do it, that's where our operational cost will also come down. Working on increasing your capacity utilization doesn't mean you really have to do when you're getting orders which are you are not able to fulfill, right? You can always increase the capacity basically for reducing your cost also, because if you are able to produce more with the same set of machines and the resources, that means your fixed cost has remained the same. It is only the variable cost of the raw materials will be used, so that overall production cost basically will come down. And let's start seeing on why there are losses. Basically, it happens. And this is the same scenario what I have tried to explain you through the value stream map. So there is a one process basically which is active. Second process, say there is a breakdown which has happened. So what it will happen is it will start creating the bottleneck there, and which is where the inventory will keep on getting locked there, and that will create a delay. So the flow basically which was there just because of one machine say down for even for 10 minutes, that that will create a backlog here. And now to clear that backlog, it will not take 10 minutes. It will take more than 10 minutes. See, this is the same situation if a traffic jam happens. Right? Traffic jam can happen just say maybe one car or maybe one red light not functioning properly, say just for a 1 minute. Even if 1 minute of a disruption, what a traffic jam happens, to clear it off, sometime it takes hours. Right? So the same situation basically it happens in our manufacturing plant, but as a owner, we don't get to know, we don't even understand that why it happened, because see, some of these informations will not even come to the ownership level, because these will be assumed that these small one or two stoppages basically are bound to happen, and then it happened and it got fixed, and then now it is working fine. So but we are not able to really analyze what is the impact that even one small one or two breakdowns also it has created to the overall production delay. And this is where the downtime, it is basically it is like an iceberg. What we don't have within our organization is a clarity about how much of a real downtime that we had, and what is the impact out of it. What gets documented in the organization is basically hardly say 10 to 20% of the downtime basically which gets really documented. Then there are a lot of undocumented or untracked basically delays and the losses which are there, which we don't even come to know on that how much of it has happened on a daily basis, or say in the last month how much was our downtime, and then what reasons for it, what were the idle time was there which is beyond the downtime, correct? So there are many things which we don't even get to know. And again, this is say it could have been just a 10-minute stoppages, but then the 10 minutes machine stoppages, one is that it will create a backlog there, a bottleneck there. Second thing is the team which is waiting at a later stage about the quality, they will get the products late for the inspection. So it will create another 15 minutes of a loss there. Then if the quality team delays, then there will be some delay that the packaging team will have, and then same delay will basically gets reflected to the dispatch team. So the it is basically a kind of a domino effect which happens in the organization, which we are not able to track in a right way that it should be. So, which is where the small stoppages also sometimes leads to big losses. I mean, this is a 10 minutes thing, correct? There are even micro stoppages also which happens, correct? So, which means say 1 minute, 2 minutes kind of an stoppages also which happens, and those also doesn't get that documented. Now, if the micro stoppages happens say 10 times in a day, correct? Even though it is of a 1 minute or 1.5 minute, still overall in a shift, basically 1 minute stoppages can become a in a shift it can become a 10 to 15 minutes of a stoppages in a shift. So that, and once it becomes a 10 to 15 minutes, it definitely creates a big impact to the production losses, right? So the idea is basically we should have a mechanism to really document these things. Now, let me ask you here. So you see two situations here, correct? Two highways, left and right, correct? So if you have to relate it with your plant, correct? How would you explain this scenario? Anyone wants to go ahead? No?
I'm not sure how
Not
they
able to
relate it.
relate completely with my
Yeah, yeah,
production.
same here.
Sorry?
I'm not
I'm
able
not
to
able to
relate.
relate it completely with my production.
Sorry, I didn't get. You were saying you are not able to relate?
Yeah, I'm not able to
Yes.
relate because there are three lines and three lines are going smooth in the left one. The right one, three lines are going in the two different speeds. But
Exactly, correct. So
the
I think,
the
yeah, yeah.
positive point in here is the first line can merge into second line any given point of time, and the same way the second can merge into third line any given point. That's what I could understand from this.
Yes,
Thank you.
and yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all. I finished.
Okay. Anyone else want to say something? And actually, this is what happens in our plant. What you are just describing, that um, there's no difference, correct? So you are not able to basically really feel that the second one, the right one, definitely has some challenge. Okay, and this is what it happens in our organization when the production is happening. We see that machines are running, the workers are working, work is happening, and then so we basically feel that there is no challenge, everything is working fine, capacity is properly utilized, correct? So what you have is basically, so if you notice the gaps between the cars here is is basically the minimum. Okay. And what you have on the right side is basically the gaps between the cars have increased. So this is what it happens basically somewhere in between some or the other, some bottleneck or not just a bottleneck, maybe some issue has happened, micro stoppage has happened or something has happened. Because of that, there is a loss of capacity. So left and right, do you see there is a different level of a capacity? Even the road size is same, correct? Both are 3 lanes. But the number of cars, basically, if you see left side, they are more than versus in the right side. So the right side is basically the underutilization of the capacity. The capacity utilization is lower on the right side versus on the left side. And what you find basically the gaps between those two cars are basically your losses. And these losses are only basically which just by doing the rounds of a plant, we might do a gamba walk, we can do 10 times in a plant, but we will not be able to basically really assess the losses until we have the right data available with us. Then only we will be able to assess how much are the gaps which we have, whether these gaps basically can be optimized, correct? So that's where the difference is. Does it make sense? Now, does it bring some clarity
Ye-
what we are trying to
Yes.
communicate?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And it is very natural, correct? Like the way you say that you don't find a difference. And this is what actually happens with us in our plant. We don't realize that there are losses happening. And these losses only basically are making us lose a lot of money. These losses only are making us becoming low competitive. These losses are only making us that our productivity and efficiency level of MSMEs units are not the same as of the larger companies. Right? So the larger companies have very few losses. MSMEs will have very high level of losses. So the question is not about the machines. Question is about how much of a losses we are able to prevent in our organization, in our manufacturing. If we can work on that, our productivity level or efficiency level will be the on par with the large companies, or at least it will not be a 7 time difference. Okay. So now I have added one more basically scenario with you. Again, capacity utilization question is only there, correct? So third thing is basically it has got added. So first one is the ideal capacity utilization. Second thing is the capacity utilization, which we feel is okay, but we don't get to know that our capacity utilization is less. Third situation is basically when we know that, oh, today there was some issue, there was a breakdown, and one breakdown basically then creates a chaos, correct? And we are used to these chaos, correct? So in a month, say 3, 4 times, 5 times it has happened. Many times chaos happens, but we don't even get to know as a owner, correct? But the chaos would have happened, but it would have got settled. It would have got settled, but how much of a loss it has created because of that chaos, we don't know. We only get to know later on that, okay, because of some issue, this order was delayed or something would have happened, right? So there is a capacity loss that happens under natural situation, and there is a further level of a capacity loss that happens because of unforeseen incidents that happens in the plant, either a breakdown or sometime material quality which we got for the raw material is not okay. Raw material we had ordered, but it didn't come on the time. 5 workers took off and they didn't come. Out of five, two were the highly skilled one, which we really needed on that day. They didn't come. Correct. Whatever it is, the unforeseen incidents that has happened, but it happens. Correct. So the third level basically losses in the capacity happens when there is unforeseen incident. So there is an ideal capacity. Second is you can say the capacity which we are okay, which is basically the planned capacity. Third one is basically the actual capacity. So that's where you start seeing uh, the capacity keeps on reducing, correct? So now this brings up to the question is basically what is the capacity utilization and how do we assess it, correct? So I think we missed one question in between. Uh, I'm just saying. So there was a one workbook question of 5.1. What are our top five bottlenecks? So before, I think that was related to the value stream map. Can we just take a minute and then fill up that question because it might help you on the capacity side also. So maybe I'll get into this capacity discussion in few minutes, but maybe take a minute or two and work on a question 5.1. What are our top five bottlenecks? And actually, you will need data. So maybe right now you can write it down based on what you feel, based on what you know from your factory. Later on, when you actually build the value stream map, that point of time you can go ahead and then update the bottlenecks again because I'm sure that will change. Okay, so I'm giving you 1 minute of a time to list down your bottlenecks. Maybe which machines, which operations you can write anyway.
Sure. And Amit, quick time check. We have less than 30 minutes now.
Yeah, I'll close in 30 minutes. Yeah. Less than 30 minutes? Okay. Yeah, must around 30 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So I hope, I mean, you have filled your five bottlenecks. Again, this would be just based on what you feel right now and the right things will only, or the right bottlenecks you will be able to define only after you have the value stream map, correct? So that will be the right bottleneck, and that's where you will start working on it. So now coming back to this topic of capacity utilization. So one is basically what we have is the design capacity. Second is basically what we have is the effective capacity. So if you see the first diagram that I had shown you, where you said that you are not able to differentiate, and this is actually the scenario where you have a design capacity, but then you get to an effective capacity basically because of certain things which are planned. So, for example, you will have some planned maintenance, you will have some quality level inspections basically that you will keep. You know that there are in a month, basically, say during the festival month, there will be some lower attendance, or you are having a manpower challenges. So you have to manage with the say 10% less manpower. There is, you know, that material availability is there or not there, or which materials will take time to get it. So accordingly, basically, you plan your capacity. Okay, it is not as your design capacity, you plan your capacity. And then what you do is basically you try to maximize it. You try to you try to keep the maintenance schedules in a way that it remains minimum, or it happens say during the non-production hours, so whatever it is, you will keep the quality level, basically inspection levels, in a way that it takes minimum of a time, correct? So you will basically try to maximize the capacity based on your planning, correct? So that's the first level that you will try to manage. And that's where you will start seeing that things are okay. Correct. You go to a plant, you are seeing certain way the productions are happening, you don't find a challenge there because you had certain planned thing in your already in the production planning. You have assumed in all of those things, and accordingly you will say that yes, everything is fine. Correct. But have we really gone ahead and then try to detail level of an understanding whether the effective capacity that we are assuming, can we not increase it? Where we can bring the optimization? Correct. So I'll give you an example. I had worked with a manufacturing company, MSME only, and there they had a ideal cycle time number for their products were there. So say how many of a product count they manufacture per machine, basically they had that number. Now what we did is we basically for 1 week we had someone who started collecting the data, and what we came out is basically the shift time closes at 6 o'clock. Around 5:30, 5:45, whatever the production planned number was there, they were already met. And that production planned number were basically based on the idle time. So what does it mean? The ideal cycle time which the organization had in with them was itself wrong. Correct? If an ideal cycle time is wrong, your production planning will go wrong, and workers will be happy to produce with the what has been given to them. Correct. So that's where, I mean, which means, and at the end, owner was getting next day report, 5,000 parts was supposed to be produced, actual produced 5,000. No issues. Correct. Owner will be happy. Correct. So are we really seeing whether the what we had assumed of producing 5,000 on that day, was that the right number or not? Why we are assuming 5,000? And then when we started working with that organization, then after that 2 months, they changed the number of that number, they increased it to 10%. So the idle cycle time was increased by basically reduced, and that production output basically was increased by 10%. So there is inefficiencies basically which is built in the system, which we don't know, which we don't realize. Correct. There is another situation. What we had seen was there were 15 machines. Out of that 15 machines, for at the end, basically that was a 12-hour shift where 8 hours was the regular and 4 hours was the overtime. Correct. There were few workers who were producing lot more in the overtime than versus in the regular time, but they were collecting data only of the 12 hours. The moment we started collecting the data of regular time production data differently and the overtime differently, then the results started coming in. So the productivity level in the regular time was less and productivity level in the overtime was more. Why? Correct. So once you start seeing the data, basically start seeing data in a proper way, then you start realizing that there are losses happening every day. Okay. So that's basically the design capacity versus effective. Effective means no untoward incidents has happened. Everything is working normally. Only thing is we have built in inefficiency in the system which we are not able to assess. Then there is effective capacities versus actual capacity. This is where basically issues happens on that day, correct? And in a typical manufacturing scenarios, we are used to seeing issues every day, daily basis, correct? So the second graphic with the third scenario where so the one car breakdown had shown, these things happens on a very regular basis. And these basically further reduces the capacity utilization. And now this happens because there is a breakdown, lower speed, and whatever it is. Result doesn't come up. You ask your team, they will say, "Oh, this person had not come, material nahi aaya, ब्रेकडाउन हो गया था, इसीलिए डिले हो गया, करेक्ट? यू विल गेट यूज टू लिसनिंग टू दीज थिंग्स ऑन एंड ऑफ ऑन ए रेगुलर बेसिस, करेक्ट? सो एंड दैट्स वेयर यू विल स्टार्ट अज्यूमिंग ये तो होना ही है, ये तो होता ही है, करेक्ट? सो दीज आर नॉट सम थिंग्स व्हिच आर वेरी न्यू और इट विल डजंट हैपन. But if you have the data available with you, if you collect the data in a right way, then these things basically will start getting to your attention. And then you will start reviewing and monitoring. Now, how do I improve it? Where do I fix the issues? Correct. And that's where basically you start understanding where are we losing our capacity. Okay. So now OE is something, I think it is a standard metrics, while it is not a metrics of capacity utilization, but in some way it gives an idea, correct? So people correlate it. It is OE is not the actual capacity utilization, but still I'll say it monitors the overall efficiency to great extent. I'm assuming all of you are very familiar with the OE. Can I is it yes? Correct. So I think every company you're may not be through the tools, but at least through the Excel or through something you are measuring OE. Is anyone in here who's not measuring the OE or not clear about OE?
We don't actually.
Okay, so let me go through it quickly. So OE is basically is the operational equipment effectiveness. This is the very, very standard benchmark. I think you should, if you're not doing, it's a sincere request, please start doing immediately. This is extremely, extremely important.
Okay.
OE is basically it gives you an assessment of what is the level of an efficiency that your organization is operating with, manufacturing is operating with. It has three components. First is availability, which is basically availability of your resources. Either it could be basically machine, manpower, correct? So availability. Second is the performance, basically how effective are you in performance. This is basically, you can say, your scorecard of your production. One is availability, whether how much of a time you are actually working. Then second is how much you are how much output you are bringing. Quality is basically what is the level of a quality basically you are bringing. Availability is measured by operating time versus the planned time. Planned time is basically, say you have a shift time of 8 hours. That's your planned time. You have assumed that you will be working 8 hours in a day. Operating times basically is how much the actual times on that machine you had worked, whether 6 hours, 7 hours. So there will be some idle time or downtime which will be there. Correct. So say if you work for if your planned time is 8 hours, the you work for 6 hours, so it becomes 6/8 into 100, and that's where it becomes the availability for that machine. Then performance is basically how much was the output basically was to be produced and how much it actually got produced. Correct. So actual output by ideal output. You had planned 1,000 parts to be produced. You produce 990 parts. So you are basically 99.9% is your performance level. Quality is how much of a defected basically you produce, that. So if you produce 1,000 components, 100 was defective, then your 99% you can say is your quality. And OE is basically is the product of availability, performance, and quality. Say if your availability is zero point 0.9, performance is 0.99, quality is 0.98. So you will multiply these three, and then the number that you will have, that will be your final number of your overall equipment effectiveness. That basically gives you what is your efficiency levels in your organization. So OE should be done for each machine, then for each line. So OE can be calculated at a machine level. Then from machine level, it can be integrated, and then you can calculate OE at a line level. And multiple line levels can be combined to calculate OE at your plant level. So and that's where you can say that, say, if my OE is not, say 67%, correct? Which you can say my efficiency of my plant is 67%. You can fairly say that. Now, typically in India, basically, since the right numbers are not happens, but again, I have seen multiple OEs being calculated in a plant. Because the data is not right, people always say that my OE is 70%, 75%, correct? So 70, 75% OE is not bad. But when we have worked with that organization and we have seen basically and start putting in the right data, basically not the data which is based on the logbooks, but putting in the right data, those OE has dropped from 70% to 50%. Okay. So 20% basically inefficiencies were built in the system, which manufacturing owners were not even able to realize. And then we started working on fixing those reasons and getting into the right level of OE. And that's where the capacity utilization basically increases. Now the world class and OE is not basically it's a standard global metrics. If an OE is about 85%, we call them organization as a world-class organization, which means if a company is operating at an 85% OE, which means they are doing extremely well, which means they would have minimum of a losses in their organizations, correct? 85% is a very high number of an OE, which itself again says 50% of the losses are acceptable even for a world class organizations. Okay, now you can imagine that if that is a state in MSME units, what is the level of OE which we will have, and how much of a capacity improvement scope that we have within our organization, how much of a cost saving that we have in our organization. And now, since I've already talked about losses, I think I've repeated 10 times about these losses. Let's start understanding what are the different losses that happens. And I am relating now those losses to the different level of that or different parameters of OE, which is again the availability, performance, and quality. So availability losses basically happens because of the breakdown, setup time, any kind of a tool change time or material issues. Basically, these are the things which basically brings are basically the losses which impacts the availability. Minor stoppages or slow speed, correct? 1 or 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes stoppages that happens that impacts the performance. Slow speed means basically while the machine speed is kind of in standard, sometimes it is running at a low speed because of certain issues that also create the losses. Quality is basically the rejection, rework, and maybe the when you start the production, then initial few times there you will have some scrap which will get generated, correct? So that's basically the startup scrap. So if you really have to measure, assess the losses in your organization, these are the data points you should have collect accurately with you at individual machine level. And if you have it, then that's where basically you will start analyzing and start seeing what kind of losses that you have in your organization, correct? So now let's try to see what are the losses with us. So maybe go to the workbook and it's the 6.1. Again, what I want you to do is list down your top 5 losses which you feel you have. I'm assuming these will not be the right data points that you will have right now because at least in my experience, 99% of the organizations manufacturing owner doesn't have that clarity about these numbers, correct? So, but still, if you have to say what are my top 5 losses, just list down what it is. And I have just brought back that same screen again, so you can see that what are the kind of a losses. So maybe from here only you can just list down what you feel right now are your top 5 losses. Okay, so what you have is basically 4 plus 2 plus 6 and 9. So there are 9 loss categories I have written. You just put your 5 out of your these 9 and review it later based on assessing the data points of your organization. And I hope, I mean, these losses are clear to everyone. The terminology is correct. So if anyone has any question, I'm happy to answer. Okay, so I'll move next. Then what we have is basically for a capacity utilization, what you need is basically assessment of the losses, correct? So now the next point which I really want to emphasize is these are the different data points or the basically the details you should have it together. What problems happens in the organization is in many organizations there are multiple places where these data are getting collected. Some in the paper logbook, some data will be there in the paper logbook, some data will be going to the ERP, some data will be in the Excel, correct? Maintenance will have their own system, quality will have their own system, process level data, half of the data will not even getting collected, half of the data will be there. So it's basically chaos. Material data will only win in the ERP, production level data, high level daily production level data will be in the ERP, machine level production level data will not be anywhere, it will be only maybe in the manual logbooks. So considering these data are at a separate places, you really don't have a single view of your organization. And in all probability, to find out the root cause of a problem, you will have to look at the data from different point of view. For example, if the quality is not right, what were the process parameters? Correct. So process parameters and quality are always correlated. Correct. If the quality is not okay, what material was used, which grade of material was used, which supplier basically supplied those material, at what process level it got done, when the machine maintenance was done, whether the machine maintenance schedule was changed, correct? What happened? So there are a lot of correlation these data have with each other. And until the correlated data appears in a right way with you, even if you have all the 100% data, like production data, material, process, quality, maintenance, even you have all the data available with you. But if it is not available in a form where it can be correlated with each other, you will not be able to find the right root cause of a problem. Root cause will only come if the data is together in a proper format, in a proper interface, so that you are able to immediately assess what is the problem and why that problem is happening. Okay, so which is why integration thing where that I was highlighting earlier becomes extremely important. You get insights from your data only if it is there is an integration within your organizations. Without that, all are standalone systems. You can spend lakhs of crores of rupees buy a different thing. But if your data is not consolidated, even though you have the right systems, you will not save money. And which is where then people start blaming. Digitalization is an expensive, it leads to, it doesn't bring in the outcomes. There is no ROI of digital. There is no ROI of digital is only because it was not done properly. If it gets done properly, if the right data is coming out from there in right format, there is no way it will not yield results. ROI of digital will be always there. It will always basically bring in capacity utilization increase. Always. Only thing is it has to be implemented in a structured way, proper way. If the structured way or proper way is not there, systems are not properly aligned. Whatever systems you take it, you might have SAP, which is, let's say, one of the highest cost ERP solutions are there. But if it is not aligned well with the other parameters, even if you spend crores of rupees in SAP, you will not save money and you will not be able to improve the capacity utilization. Correct? So ये पॉइंट एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आपका जितना भी डेटा हो, प्रोडक्शन, मटेरियल, प्रोसेस, क्वालिटी, मेंटेनेंस, ये सारा डेटा एक साथ राइट फॉर्मेट में होना चाहिए, तभी आपको रिजल्ट्स आएंगे। अगर ये एक साथ नहीं है, आपको बेसिकली डिजिटल का बेनिफिट नहीं मिलेगा। So please remember this and try to kind of work on this. So now my point is basically, now how do you work on improving the capacity utilization, correct? So one is basically start measuring, no guesses, no asking people, your team ki kitna losses ho raha hai. You believe only the data. Data should kind of be believed. Then assess the bottleneck. Okay, identify which are my slowest operations. Work on measuring the losses, which are the different losses. Basically, I have kind of listed down for you, and then work on optimizing. Basically, whether to improve availability, whether to improve performance, quality. Basically, you have to work on all three, because even if because OE is, as I said, it's a multiplication of all three. Even if one parameter is below, your complete OE metrics will go for a toss. So which is why you have to work on all three parameters. You can't afford to just work on one and then neglect the other two. It doesn't mean anything. Okay. Now you have to think beyond ERP. You have to think there is no choice. If you really have to save money, you have to think beyond ERP. Objective of ERP is only to run your organization. ERP doesn't save money. Okay. Money is saved by the other systems, basically, which works along with the ERP. Then only you will start saving money. ERP means you are able to function the things smoothly. ERP doesn't do any optimization. Correct? ERP is like you are able to eat your basic food. ERP is basic, but still you need it because you need food to survive. Correct? So you need ERP. But other than the food, you need many other things. You need vitamins, you need proteins, you need carbohydrates, you need different vitamins, correct? You need everything also. Just having the basic dal rice every day doesn't make you healthy. Correct? You need a lot of other supplements basically to make you healthy, which is why you need other things. One thing basically is here is basically the overall production planning and the monitoring system, correct? This system is called MES, Manufacturing Execution System. The category of it is basically a system which is built specially for a manufacturing function. And what happens in these systems are basically right from planning, even the routing or scheduling, the machine level planning, machine level resource allocation, machine level manpower allocation, material allocation, all happens basically in the systems. And then the data recording, basically data can be recorded through multiple ways, but data at an individual machine level should start getting documented in the system. And then you should have your KPIs, which you are regularly monitoring, assessing OE, assessing different level of capacity utilization, and then the daily level of reportings, correct? So these are the basically some of the things. If you do, then it will help you in optimizing your operations. Okay, I'll skip this slide. So just now closing on the capacity utilization, just a simple stats for you. If you are able to improve down basically idle time, if you are able to reduce idle time by 15 minutes of in one machine per shift, you will increase your capacity utilization by 3%. Correct? This is how much powerful basically the capacity utilization is. 15 minutes saving per machine is not at all a difficult thing, correct? So you can easily do it just with a little bit of an attention also. You don't even need digital systems to save 15 minutes of an idle time per machine. Just by focusing and analyzing the results, you can do it, correct? So which is what I'm saying. 3% capacity utilization you can immediately do without any external help. Now imagine if you have digital systems along with you, what is the level of a capacity utilization you can definitely increase. So now let me come to the quality, correct? So we keep saying that quality issues are happening and we are not able to kind of control it. There are we spend a lot of money on the quality, our products getting rejected, or some people say that we have the good quality, correct? So it's all different things. Now, what I wanted to really introduce you to is basically quality doesn't always mean the quality of the product which has got shipped to the customer. You need to be worried about the process quality also. Because if your process is well executed, you will not even have a defective products. Defective products happens only because there are problems in your process quality. Correct. So if you want to improve the quality, you have to work on process quality. If you have to ensure that the customer doesn't receive the defective products, then you will work on the product quality. The objective. So basically, these are two different things. Product quality is focus of the product quality is basically the focus on how is product made. प्रोडक्ट कैसा है, प्रोडक्ट दिखने में कैसा है, प्रोडक्ट स्पेसिफिकेशन के हिसाब से बना कि नहीं बना. Process quality ensure is focus on how product is made. It is not how is the product, it is how the product is made. Because अगर प्रोडक्ट ही अच्छे से बनाएंगे तो प्रोडक्ट अच्छा बनेगा ही. Correct. Then we don't have to spend so much in doing the detailed level of a quality inspection. Correct. As per lean terminology, all quality inspection is a waste because customer doesn't pay for it. It is non-value added. Correct. So what we have to work on basically is the process quality. Process quality verifies whether the process parameters are controlled, and which is why I'm saying in problems that we are seeing in the majority of the MSME organization is we are not monitoring the process. If there are machines, then that machine is working on which setting, what was the speed of the machine, what was the temperature level, what was the pressure level, and all other things that were defined as per the SOPs or the specifications, whether we are properly working as per the process or not. Correct. In the product quality, we basically verify the product specification, whether that we will measure the dimension, we will measure the size, we will measure whether any physical defects or not. Correct. So the objective of process quality and the product quality basically becomes different. Okay. And process quality ensures that defects doesn't occur. Product quality ensures that defective product doesn't go to the customer. Okay. Process quality gets driven through the SOPs and the process controls. Product quality gets driven through the regular inspection that we keep doing. Okay. Process quality reduces variation, rework, and production losses. So I hope, this slide makes you very clear that how important is to focus on process quality. If we are able to focus on process quality, then we don't have to do a very detailed level of an inspection, because we will be confident that we will measure all right products only. Okay, so the mindset has to shift from product quality to process quality. So there was a question basically in the workbook, which was on how will you move from a product quality mindset to a process quality mindset. That question maybe you can, or I think I'm just seeing the time. They're already 5 minutes over, so there are a few things which I have to cover. So maybe you can do this question later on, but I think it is important. So you really have to start shifting the focus. I'm not saying you get away from the doing the quality inspection. That's not the intent, because whatever it is, even if you improve the process, and it will definitely reduce the quality defects. But even if 1% of a quality defects are there, you still have to inspect, because the customer should receive zero defect from it. But your lot of internal wastages definitely will get reduced if there is a better process quality. So think over how do you move from or how do you basically balance out this that you are able to invest in the process quality also. Okay. So for your quality, basically the roadmap should be first thing is you have to ensure that the raw material has to be good. Second thing is you have to monitor the process closely. Okay. So thus there is a standard process. There is a correct equipment settings are there. Operators are trained. Then there is a continuous process monitoring. And which is again and again, I am saying at least in, I'll say 99% of the MSMEs, I am saying the proper process monitoring is not happening in the organizations. We are not analyzing whether the right machine settings was done, whether the right temperature settings were done. Workers just fill it as a standard thing. This product was made for a 50 degree centigrade, so that they will just fill it 50 degree. They will not even look at that actual temperature and they will write the number there. Certain things get just filled in just for a compliance purpose, but it doesn't happen in the real spirit, correct? But we have to monitor these process parameters in the real spirit and control the process quality. Once you control the process quality, you will start seeing the results immediately. Okay. Then what we have is basically the operations visibility. So that's basically what we need at an organization level. We need to have real-time dashboards for these multiple things. Inventory at an overall level, inventory consumption at an individual operation level, efficiency at individual machine or equipment level, efficiency at line level, efficiency at plant level, productivity, basically which are my top productive workers, which are my bottom productive workers, which workers are giving lower quality, which workers are giving higher quality, which kind of product lines we have a quality issues, how much of a breakdown is happening, what are the top reasons of the breakdown, which machines undergoes breakdowns more frequently, which machines are lesser breakdown. If a breakdown is there, what is the impact? How my delivery is going, what is my capacity utilization, and the last thing is basically the traceability. Traceability means if a product basically we have say goes to the customer says I'm not happy with this product, you are able to trace back its whole history, how the product was made, which machine the product was made, at what process parameter was there at the time of manufacturing, who were the worker who involved in it, when the quality inspection was done during the production, what were the results, from which raw material basically it was produced, who was the supplier basically who supplied this product. Everything basically will come out of this traceability. Okay. So these are some of the dashboards basically you should have in your organization, which will make you clear on what all is happening. And if you have these dashboards, you don't have to call anyone, make a phone call, or you don't have to ask anyone, tell me what is the status, tell me what is happening, correct? So, and then you will have a right analysis and data with you. If you have all of these dashboards, the point earlier, which was making that all the data basically should be together, correlated data should be there, then only you will be able to analyze it properly. If you have these kind of dashboards, it will make it things a lot more easier for you. Okay. Last, this is on the governance structure. Again, the issue that I have seen in the MSME organization is there are different meetings which happens, correct? As a owner, we go in and every day ask, yesterday how much was production was done. Okay, which is okay, you should ask. Then you will ask that what orders were shipped on time, why the order is pending. Then there is a weekly meeting, monthly meeting, quarterly, yearly. Correct. So these are different kind of meetings which happens. But one thing which I've seen in MSME unit is in all these meetings, we are only reviewing operations. We are only reviewing regular stuff. What we need to have is basically the objective of each meeting has to be very, very different. The level of strategic importance should keep on increasing from daily to weekly to monthly, quarterly to yearly. If you are doing an yearly review, it has to be absolutely a strategic review. In MSMEs, we are not doing any strategic reviews. We are doing only very basic level of an operational reviews. And if you are not doing strategic reviews, then again, you will not be able to think in a direction that how should we grow, what should be the transformational changes that we should be doing, what are our basic level of an issues which are not getting fixed, correct? So these are the different things you should analyze depending upon what kind of meetings you are going in. So the governance structure has to be strict and has to be aligned with that. Okay, so there is also a question about how will you change your governance structure, and that's something basically you can fill it up. Now since at the beginning I had given you a operational maturity level, correct? There are different maturity levels which are there. And specific on that digital maturity assessment, this is a standard framework basically which is used globally. Even the lighthouse factories, global lighthouse factories also gets assessed based on this framework. So this framework basically, when the assessment gets done, it's basically a detailed level of an assessment where different organization functions gets analyze how they are functioning. For example, supply chain, product life cycle, correct? So there are different functions basically gets assessed based on the different parameters. Then the gap analysis happens, and then the benchmarking happens on say how your current processes are versus the global company's processes. And after that gap analysis, there is a roadmap. Basically, you can make it which says what are the initial actions that you should be taking to improve the operations in your organization. Correct. So that's the one. There are many more frameworks are there. Certain times assessment can be done using these. Okay. Now, why digital adoption is basically is not happening in the MSMEs units, and it's basically these are the top reasons basically that I have seen with the different MSME units. So one is definitely the digital skills gap. So there is a limited understanding of digitalization. We have a basic level understanding. We are really not clear about how to build a roadmap, what should be done first, because in a digital journey, these steps also are important. I mean, if you take the second step first and first step third, correct, you will not get the outcome. So that's where the right kind of a structuring it is needed. A lot of times we because we are used to lean functioning, correct, so that we keep focusing in a manufacturing on continuous improvement, which has to be there. But then along with that, we should also be thinking about the overall transformation levels also, because if we really have to grow the business from 100 to 200 cr, just continuous improvement will not suffice, correct? We have to think of a transformational initiatives also. Then there is a limited experience of the solution adoption which is there, and many times basically there is a lack of a support from the workforce is also there. But that's we have to be clear on how do we handle that. I think we should be involving even our workforce also in the digital initiative, then it makes the things much simpler. I keep hearing questions also about the ROI. So, just a little clarity. ROI of digital is not like you buy machines and immediately you have an ROI of process initiatives or digital initiatives are always where initially there is a setting up of a time. Basically, you are learning, building capabilities, trying. So initially you will not see the ROI, but once you have an understanding, once the systems are functional, once the team is adjusted, suddenly you will have an exponential ROI. And this exponential ROI will be even much higher than the regular ROI, correct? So, which is why we have to be a little patient, because initial time will go in the learning, right? Without learning, ROI will not come. So we have to give some time to the learning, trying and seeing the results. That's the last slide that I have for you. Is basically now this is your call to action, and this is the detailed that analysis you will do. Uh, uh, I think you would have answered multiple questions in your workbook, but this is all basically bringing it together. So list down what are your challenges, based on the challenges, what are my priorities, what is my vision of 3 years. And there's a typo here. So basically, what I will do in 26, what I will do in the current quarter, my priorities for 3 years, my priority for current year, and my priorities for the current quarter. Correct. So that's how you should define your priorities. Then what actions basically I will be taking, and the last thing that you can do is basically where I need help, whether I need help in the digital roadmap, I need help in how do I assess the ROI, or what solutions we need, or we know what solutions we need, but we don't know what requirement that solution should have. Correct? We don't know how do I define functional requirement of that solution. Then you can identify the solution. So before going to the solution provider, you should have first four things clear with you. Please do not go to the solution provider if you don't have clarity about first four things, because your solution provider will give you only what you ask for. If you don't ask the right things, you will not get the right things. So that's where have clarity about the first four things. Then you go to the solution provider. Then do a detailed review during the implementation. Please don't leave up to solution provider everything and assuming that solution provider is an expert, the person will do everything, and then you just kind of and wait and watch until it is completed. Please keep on asking question, keep on reviewing. Correct. So it is very much needed. And then do a proper training. Train your workforce also, train your blue collar workforce also on the basic level of a digital literacy. Because if they have a digital literacy, they will be more supportive of the using the systems. If they don't understand it, they will not be comfortable in using. Correct. So have some basic level of a training also for your workforce and for yourself. Okay. So I hope, I mean, that was helpful. If you have any more question, basically I can answer now. And here are few pointers for you. Basically, I keep posting regularly on LinkedIn on these areas. You can always follow and you can look at. In fact, I mean, based on whatever I have worked with the MSMEs over the last 8, 9 years, I had created a podcast also, which it's a 15 minutes, four short videos. If maybe later on you can listen to it. I mean, if there are question comes in that basically podcast, I have answered all the basic level of a question that comes in manufacturer's mind on when they're going about the digitalization. So, uh, while after this session, if there are some questions are there, you can always go to that podcast and you can get it. So thank you very much for.
We thank you so much, Amit, for the wonderful session. And I hope we will get a lot of input through the workbooks. And once the workbooks are back to us, we will arrange the one-to-one sessions. So there is a poll we usually run before the one-to-one sessions. So as soon as they finish the workbooks, they can opt for a one-to-one session with the expert, and they can come with the workbook and spend 45 minutes, 1 hour with you to deep dive in the solutions. All right.
Sure,
With
sure.
this, I thank you all for joining, and now we can close the session.